gonna call? Younger generations of Ghostbuster fans have been waiting for years for something like Ghostbusters Afterlife to come out. Fans who weren't around in the 1980s could only dream of having a new movie, one that wasn't the 2016 female reboot. And so there was a lot of anxiety coming into this movie because there was a lot of expectations to fill, and I think that Ghostbusters Afterlife created a good blend of 21st century today and 1980s, in part because Jason Reitman, Ivan Reitman's son, directed the movie, so he had his dad to guide him through, and he even said in an interview that he was around when his father directed the first two movies in 1984 and 1989, so I think that really helped that he had the perfect sense of what a Ghostbusters movie should be, and in that sense, everything was able to be blended and put together. There was a good bit of nostalgia, but you could see a future generation coming into this movie. You could see where there is potential for new generations to pick up that trend and keep it going. Listen, if you haven't seen the movie yet, I don't really know why you're here. I'm not going into a full plot analysis, but I am going to be giving some spoilers along the way. So if you have not seen the new movie yet, please tread very, very carefully. Right off the bat, the best thing about this new movie was that Egon Spengler was the essence of the movie. His spirit was in it just as much as Harold Ramis' spirit was in it, being one of the creators with Dan Aykroyd of the movie, of the Ghostbusters franchise. Right from the very first scene, we have this point of view of Spengler and what happened before he died, before the character died. And it's interesting how we only see things from his point of view to begin with. And it isn't explicitly stated, but if you're a big Ghostbusters fan, it's not very surprising that this happened. And I really liked how things were blurry, things were not, things weren't very clear. So it was a good mix of, in the horror genre, what's known as spectacle and suggestion. So spectacle is when you see the monster or whatever creepy thing it's supposed to be. Suggestion is when something is suggested to happen. It's not clear, but you can make that assumption. So I really liked that I could make that assumption. Oh my gosh, this is probably how, this is going to be Spengler. This is going to be how they killed him off. Very end of the movie, it is credited, dedicated to Harold Ramis, again, just because, I mean, without Spengler, the genius of Ghostbusters, you need him there. So the whole movie as a tribute both to Egon Spengler and to Harold Ramis was particularly fitting. In addition to that, I also really liked how Spengler was still part of it as a spirit. I mean, a Ghostbuster who has died. It makes sense that he would come back and guide his granddaughter through the whole plot, through the conflict, and teaching her the big plan of what he was trying to do right before he died. I really like how he's almost like a friendly ghost, a friendly spirit, but I mean, what else would you expect? It's Egon Spengler. It's not like it's some creepy monster or something. I also like how, even when it's not just in a spirit, in a ghost sense, just the fact that you can see through Phoebe, that you can see the genetic line. It's clear from the way she dresses, to the way she acts, to the scientific knowledge that she knows. It's clear that she is most definitely Spengler's granddaughter, and she does not disappoint. It's a very perfect. As I mentioned earlier, I really liked how there was this sense of, okay, a new generation of Ghostbusters, this could be promising. If they ever wanted to do a new spin-off with the new generation, I think they totally could. Being that Phoebe is so much like her grandfather, she has the scientific genius brain of the bunch, like Spengler. And looking at the other characters, I noticed these parallels that really could fit. being that podcast is like the perfect race dance of sort of flighty, sort of comedic, thinks on the fly, doesn't necessarily think things through, provides a lot of that humor. I got a slight vibe from Trevor that he could sort of be a Peter Venkman, in terms of, oh hey, I want to be a ladies' man. I didn't find too much of a strong connection there, but I think there's potential. And again, I didn't see too much connection between Lucky and Zedmore, but that introduces diversity, and I could definitely see that playing a role there as well. So I think there's most definitely a lot of potential. Sometimes with reboots and sequels like this, the new cast just is completely flat and things. I will say that throughout most of the movie, every time I saw Trevor, who was played by Finn Wolfhard, who, of course, is Mike from Stranger Things, every time I saw him, I was like, you don't belong here. What are you doing? That's not your right character. And there is the point where Trevor has a crush on a girl, and I'm like, no. You're with 11. What are you doing? You don't belong here. So that took a little getting used to, but he still plays the role very well. I did sort of wonder if maybe he's being typecast a little bit. That might be going a little too far, but being that Ghostbusters, sci-fi connection, 80s connection, Stranger Things, sci-fi, 80s, I still think he was a perfect fit for the role. It just has me wondering where his career is going in terms of being maybe typecast or being in these sci-fi sorts of movies. In the middle of the movie, when the whole plot is unfolded and Gozer comes back in, I'm just sitting there in the chair thinking, oh my gosh, is this going to be like Force Awakens, where we're just throwing in the same old plot because we don't have anything new? That was my initial reaction to the whole Gozer plot coming back up again, but I will say that that didn't last. I think they found enough refreshing ways to make that come alive again and to connect it back to the first Ghostbusters movie, which was really nice. There were some parallels that I wasn't necessarily thrilled with. The whole gatekeeper, keymaster, that parallel again. I mean, I know it's needed for the whole Gozer plot to unfold and come to fruition, but it did seem a little old. Another thing was Paul Rudd's character, who was Gary Gruberson. The thing I didn't like was I didn't get Louis Tully vibes from him, but because he ended up being the keymaster and there was a lot of humor to his character, it almost seemed like they were trying to make him a little bit more like Louis Tully, but to me they're two very different characters, and Gruberson does not fall into the Louis Tully category. But I will say, if you do want to see Paul Rudd running through Walmart, the movie is most definitely for you. Even the whole Stay Puft Marshmallow Man thing, I was very happy with the tiny, cute little marshmallows everywhere. Again, I think that could be bigger than Baby Yoda, but I'm not in charge of Ghostbusters merchandising. For me, there were a few disconnect moments, especially in the beginning. The beginning is very dramatic and serious, especially as it's showing what Spengler was doing right up until when he died. And even when his daughter and his grandchildren go back to his house to go through everything after his death, it feels kind of a little dry. The humor doesn't kick itself off as you would expect from a Ghostbusters movie. It's not like Peter Venkman just popping in and doing his thing. But that's not to say that it doesn't pick up later. It most certainly does. And then once it starts to pick up and more characters are introduced, that humor picks up and you can feel it come back to a Ghostbusters vibe. Another thing that I was not expecting was I knew that the other three original Ghostbusters, being Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz, and Ernie Hudson as Winston Zedmore, I thought they were going to be a little more present in the film, more as co-stars than these cameo appearances that show up at the end. As disappointed as I was by that, their entrance into the movie was nothing short of legendary. From the moment they popped up, it was right. It comes right at the climactic moment when you need the true Ghostbusters to come out of nowhere and save the day, and they do. And once they're there, the witty and snarky comedic dialogue just comes in, goes back and forth. It's exactly what you would expect. So their performance was still phenomenal 30, 40 years later. They are still doing what they do. And that, as a Ghostbusters fan, was probably the most exciting moment of the entire movie, is when they come in to save the day. It's like, yes, they are here. Hallelujah. Everything's going to be great. And that's almost a trifecta. That's that big point where the modern and the classic fuse together. The feeling of that can't get any better.